When it comes to language education, there's this constant tug of war, right? Are we teaching students just to pass a test, or are we teaching them how to actually use the language in their everyday lives? Today, we're diving right into that exact dilemma.
I mean, it's a classic story, isn't it? You can conjugate every verb, you know all the grammar rules inside and out, but the second you need to have a simple, real-world shot, you just freeze. That huge gap between knowing about a language and actually using it, that's what we're digging into. And this really sets up the central conflict. On one side, you've got the incredible pressure of exams, which demand accuracy and knowing very specific content. And on the other, the whole reason we learn a language in the first place, to actually communicate, confidently. So how can teachers possibly serve both of those goals at once?
Okay, so let's get into it. To really understand this problem, we first have to look at the two big, fundamental ideas in teaching that kind of created this tension. It all starts right here. So the first big split is between product and process. A product-oriented syllabus is all about the final result. What can you prove you know on a test? Think of it like a checklist, grammar points, vocab lists. But a process-oriented syllabus, that's more about the journey itself. It's about how you learn, the strategies you pick up, and the conversations you have. One is building knowledge for a test, the other is building skills for life. And that brings us to the next divide, synthetic versus analytic. A synthetic approach is kind of like building with Legos. You're given these small, separate pieces, a grammar rule here, a vocab list there, and you're expected to slowly piece it all together. The analytic approach, it's the total opposite. It gives you the finished meal and asks you to figure out the recipe. You're surrounded by real language, and you start to figure out the rules from the context. One is all about structure, the other is all about meaning.
So, that's the theory. But how do these big ideas actually show up in a real classroom? Let's take a look at a couple of modern ways to build a syllabus that have come out of these philosophies.
So take the procedural syllabus. This is a perfect example of a process-oriented analytic approach. Here, the goal isn't to learn a grammar point. The goal is to solve a problem, like, say, figuring out directions on a map. Language just becomes the tool you need to get the task done. You learn it naturally, almost like a side effect of doing something that actually feels useful.
Then you've got another modern idea, the lexical syllabus. This approach says, hey, real fluency doesn't come from memorizing grammar rules. It comes from mastering thousands of these common word combinations or chunks. Phrases like, on the other hand, or make a decision. It focuses on the real building blocks that native speakers use all the time, which is a very real-world analytic way of looking at things.
Okay, so we've got all this theory. Now let's get real and see how it all plays out in a specific, high-pressure situation. The education system in Bangladesh.
I mean, the reality on the ground is just full of challenges. We're talking about huge class sizes, unbelievable pressure to do well on standardized tests, and not always having a ton of resources or digital access. So in that kind of environment, it's pretty natural that the curriculum gets super focused on grammar and reading, the stuff that's easy to test. Meanwhile, critical skills like speaking and listening, they often get left in the dust.
And wow, this quote from the research really just says it all. The system's intense focus on exams pretty much forces teachers to treat the syllabus like a checklist they just have to get through. It's less about real teaching and more about just covering the material. There's simply no time for those cool, process-oriented methods when a big test is right around the corner.
So, with all these limitations, what's the answer? Is it even possible to find some kind of balance? Well, the research suggests that yes, it is. But it takes a really thoughtful hybrid approach.
And this is really the heart of the solution. A truly great curriculum can't be just one or the other. It has to be both. When you combine product and process, you get the clear goals you need for exams, but you also get the real-world problem-solving skills. And when you blend synthetic and analytic methods, you build that solid grammar foundation that tests require while also giving students the fluency to actually use it. It's about building accuracy and fluency together.
So, the biggest takeaway here is that this whole syllabus dilemma isn't an either-or question. It's really a both-and problem. The solution isn't about throwing out old methods, it's about strategically mixing in the new ones to create a curriculum that gets students ready for their exams and for the real world waiting outside the classroom. Which leaves us with one final, really important question to chew on. If the end goal really is genuine communication, then maybe it's not just the syllabus that needs to change. Maybe it's how we measure success in the first place. It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.